Welcome to the Park and Recreation Commission regular meeting of November 21st, 2024. The time is 6:00 p.m. Becky, can you please call the roll?
Yes, Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sandoval,
Yes.
Commissioner Emerson is absent, Commissioner Gutierrez, and Commissioner Pasternak is also absent. All right, thank you.
All right. So then I will call the items for, first one is the approval of the regular meeting minutes from October 17th, 2024. And are there any questions from the commissioners? No. Okay, so then I request a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes.
Second.
Becky, can you take the roll call, please?
Oh, you're muted.
Thank you. Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sandoval,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, so now the public is welcome to address the commission at this time on matters not listed on the agenda that are within its jurisdiction. Comments may be no longer than 3 minutes and should be respectful to the community. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to share public comments? Yes.
Hi, I'm Katie Fleet and I live in Gerstle Park. I'm a member of the Gerstle Park Neighborhood Association. I'm on the board and I wanted to address this group about the issue of homeless camping in our public parks and about safety in our public parks. I've addressed this issue with multiple entities and I'm on this homeless working group and have talked about this before the city council, but I feel like it's really important to raise with this group because this issue really specifically affects parks and use and enjoyment of the parks by the whole community. And I've been learning about this a lot, kind of by necessity. I've really learned a lot about the homeless community and a lot of the trauma histories and, difficult circumstances people are going through and mental health issues and drug addiction issues and really sympathetic to that. I'm also very sympathetic to parents and families' needs for safety and to be able to use our parks. And this issue's come up in the city and it's gotten addressed as it's become a problem. And I feel like we're continuing to do that, but we have an opportunity to actually address it thinking forward with a new homeless ordinance that hopefully will happen next year. And I hope that this group can support a new ordinance that better protects our parks for enjoyment by the whole community. So I think you guys know that there is like a changed legal landscape since, the first ordinances were passed. And, the Supreme Court decision in City of Grants Pass has really changed the landscape for what cities are able to regulate and how. Our city is obviously very concerned about litigation because we had a very traumatic and difficult and complicated litigation experience, but I think the law currently supports a lot more limits on homeless camping and that it's in the best interest of the community as a whole to limit camping further. So, first this issue came up in Boyd Park, it was limited in Boyd Park, then it came up in Albert Park. I literally, was at the city council testifying about what was happening 10 feet away from here where my kid at Parkside, was watching homeless people like urinate. And now since the city's changed things, it's happening in Gerstle Park. So there are people camping in Gerstle Park and, we've had lots of issues with harassment of park users, of, kids like literally sitting 10 feet away from a homeless person having some sort of mental health episode. People are really scared to use the park. People are scared to walk their dogs in the park. There are people camping in the park, people camping in the open space. There's poop, there's pee, there's toilet paper. We're working with the city and the police to deal with this, but I just want to say, I think we have an opportunity to be proactive and to prevent this from happening in places where it hasn't happened already and to kind of get out of our situation where we're just reacting to where problems emerge, because I think oftentimes the damage is already done by the time we get to trying to help those areas. So I just wanted to support a stricter ordinance limiting use in parks, including Bristol and, hopefully others. Lots of other cities prohibit camping wholesale in public parks. I noticed we prohibit camping in all our public parking lots, but not our parks. And I think at better signage, I know this is an issue that Craig is working on, in multiple levels, but in terms of what's allowed where. And what kind of behavior is allowed where for homeless campers and all people using the park. I think we have a real problem in Gerstle with, just basic respect for park rules and a lack of enforcement of that. I've lived in Gerstle since 2016. And for the first time ever, I saw SRPD issuing citations for public drinking. We all joke it's the Gerstle bar where people go to drink and basically toss glass bottles around, near the playground, but I'm finally seeing enforcement and I'm hopeful about that. So I just wanted to support, on my own behalf and for the neighborhood association, a stricter ordinance, better communication through signage and other efforts, and more cooperation with SRPD on enforcement.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Thank you for, well done.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you bringing that here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Okay, so if there's no other public comments, then I can see if the staff wants to choose to respond and questions. If there's
We're
questions.
not allowed to respond to anything that's not agenda.
Okay. So then we'll close it for public comment. Thank you so much. So we don't have any special presentations this month, so we'll move on to our regular agenda items. And first up on our agenda is the annual update on citywide Parks and Recs master plan implementation.
Good to see you all. Thanks for being here. I'm gonna turn it over to Catherine, who's gonna lead this presentation.
Yeah, I'm gonna do this correctly with the Zoom meeting.
Always the trickiest part is being able to see the behind the scenes.
It's been a while since I've actually led one of these presentations for you all, so I figured I'd give Craig a break and take this one on. So I'm really excited to be presenting kind of the update on our citywide park and recreation master plan. Kind of as a background, I know actually all of you are aware and were on the commission when we were developing this plan. So it was adopted in April 2023 after probably a year and a half, close to 2 years of work, of community engagement, of analysis of our system, of really kind of back and forth thought around what our city needs and how we prioritize the different needs. We are an older city with an aging infrastructure, as we saw through this plan, right? It came up with 162 different recommendations, which is a lot. These were everything from a huge number of them were infrastructure projects, but also policies, facility improvements, and more. And so how we prioritize these was as important as how many we identified. So we developed a set of evaluation criteria to prioritize these, and that can also be adapted to as we move forward and as situations change, right? 2023 was a moment in time. So much has happened even since then. So we really wanted to design this plan to be adaptable. And since it was adopted, we're about a year and a half into using this plan to implement and to prioritize how we're investing in our capital projects, how we're using staff time to evaluate different policy options, and also how we're using our staff time to maintain our facilities. Anything else I wanted to say there? Let me think. So I think when we met as a commission earlier this year, late last year, to talk about what we wanted to our work plan as a commission, one of the things I know you all requested was an update on where we're at with the citywide Parks and Recreation Master Plan. So that's why, that's why we're here to do this. I think it aligns with a lot of the other regular reports. I don't think, hopefully nothing in here is a surprise. Everything in here you should have received either through the, our Parks and Engineering biannual reports or through our Measure A work planning process. But it was actually really helpful for us as staff. I think it'll be a good exercise for the commission to go through it and look at it this way, comparing it to how the master plan was laid out. So let's jump into where we're at. So the near term part, and I realize we have this in the staff report, but I didn't include it here, was how many near term recommendations we have total. What we focused on here are the ones where we have something to report on. There are a handful of ones that we no progress made yet, and we can talk about those as requested. But so to go through the near term park recommendations where we have something to report on. The Pickleweed Park Enhancement Project. So that is a huge one. That was the #1 priority that came out of the Park and Recreation Master Plan. And that's something we're in construction.
That's great.
I think we just got the BCDC permit earlier this week, which was, a bit of an ordeal, but we got there in the end. And so that's moving forward. We're hoping for a spring completion. I think it's gonna depend a bit on weather, how this winter goes, any other unexpected things that may come up during construction, but that's still what we're aiming. The next project, this was one that was complete. The Park and Rec Master Plan process identified fencing deficiencies at Albert Park, which really was a safety and liability concern. Particularly when we had added that, the ADA ramp. And then the fencing no longer protected folks going up that ramp, which was a huge issue. And really the level of urgency was dictated by the risk there. So that was completed this spring. Peacock Gap Park and the replacement of the play structures there. Those play structures had never been replaced since that park was built. And they were, as we saw with what they were, a similar type of equipment as Boyd Park. So there was a real urgency in replacing that. And it also was one of the most heavily utilized parks from the Park and Rec Master Plan. So design has been completed. We closed the construction RFP last week. We have identified a low bid contractor that we're starting to negotiate the agreement on. Anything else on that one? We're expecting the contract to go to council for approval December 16th. And hopefully starting construction early in 2020. Feel free to jump into anything. So Terralinda Park, the recommendation for that park was to develop a master plan. You all have received a presentation on that. A lot of the thinking behind a master planning project process for that park was in recognition of the projected growth in North San Rafael and the need to try and increase recreational capacity in that area, perhaps more than other areas. So we've completed round 2 of community engagement. We are working towards bringing that to this commission for kind of like the review of like the final concept in January, with the first pass through council at the end of February and hopefully adoption in early April is what we're shooting for. I think that's ambitious, especially with the holidays coming up, but that's still the timeline we're shooting. So additional near-term park recommendations. So this is getting a little bit into kind of future projections of what we're thinking about for next fiscal year. We are considering kind of the tennis court. Were 2 different recommendations around resurfacing tennis courts. Both the Freitas and the Peacock Gap courts are in pretty poor shape. And there's definitely has been a need for a few years now to resurface those. And I think that's something that we're looking at potentially recommending for next fiscal year. I think there's some conversations that will need to be had about Freitas Park because those tennis courts are not technically on city property. There's some access issues. But that will need, they're on Miller Creek School District property, so there'll need to be more conversation and thought around that. But that is something we wanna pick up next year or recommend be picked up next year. And then there's a cistern at Boyd Memorial Park that needs some, engineering evaluation, just, that's kind of a safety liability issue that we just need to take care of. So nothing particularly exciting or there, but you know, important. If we don't do it, it could be, but yeah, so that's those are what we're looking at for the next fiscal year. And we can talk more about that. I think there are other really critical near-term projects. I think I'm gonna just mention Gerstle Park
Yeah.
because I think there's two projects there that are also near-term projects. One is the playground replacement and one is an evaluation and improvement of the pathways. With our recent experiences replacing playgrounds and doing pathways, we know those are large projects that take significant budget. Where we're at with Measure A, it will probably take us 2 to 3 years minimum to accumulate enough money to actually bring that project to construction. So rather than, we want to make sure once we start the design and start the engagement process, we're able to move forward on that quickly and to not have like a long gap between design and construction. So we would recommend looking at starting that further out so that we will have the capacity and the resources to do that more in a more timely process. All right, so then policy recommendations. I think this actually might be an area where we haven't spent as much time as the commission, but staff has been doing a lot behind the scenes. So I organized this a little bit by the first policies are park specific ones and then kind of citywide and some operational ones. So at Albert Park, there's a recommendation for additional maintenance resources at Albert Field. This past year, our parks team has been able to contract out some of their median and vegetation management work and been able to free up time to spend at Albert Park. And we've had some really great feedback from this past year. Our user groups, we got really positive feedback from them on that, how that's worked. So we're gonna, that's our plan is to continue doing that and yeah, that's been, seems to be working. Beach Park, that one is, we continue, the recommendation there, because of the location of that property, the challenges that we've had with maintaining it safely in the past, the recommendation there is really to look for a public-private partnership in order to reopen that park. A lot of that is dependent on the adjacent property. So the city has been continuing to monitor the progress of that sale. We've responded to a few different potential buyers and tried to work with them in their process. It hasn't been sold yet, but we continue to be hopeful and what we're seeing, the types of businesses that are interested, that there might be one coming in there that could be a complementary use. So that's a little bit of a wait and see, but we are monitoring it. We're doing what we can to support that. Pickleweed Park Field, I think that's another recommendation for considering additional maintenance. And I think once the all-weather turf is in, our maintenance staff at the moment, based on what they know of all-weather turf fields, they feel they'll be able to manage it or maintain it at the needed level. Something we're going to continue to monitor. I think it's just an X factor. We haven't done it before, so we'll see as we move on. But we are discussing it and considering options, talking to other agencies that have these types of fields and getting a better sense of what they need. So these are kind of the citywide policy recommendations. The first one is assessing options to address deficiency in spaces for off-leash dogs. So this came back as a pretty high priority at the time. We were experiencing a lot of conflict between off-leash dogs and park users kind of throughout our park system. Since this came out the past 2 years. Spring, it's, usually summer 2023 and 2024. The number of complaints we received on that. Has pretty much has dropped significantly. So while we are continuing to monitor this, the urgency around it feels like it's maybe self-resolving a little bit. So doesn't feel like something we really need to pick up right now. But we are continuing to monitor it, and we have some ideas should it ever bubble back up, but that's something we would be working with the commission on. If it feels it can become a very political, very tricky thing. So if things are working, okay. Status quo is probably best, but we are prepared if we need to go a different direction. Evaluating city restroom maintenance citywide, and improving levels are required. This is another one where the past couple of years have been okay. We haven't been receiving as many complaints about the state of the restrooms. Again, we've been in ongoing conversations with the public works maintenance team. They service the restrooms every Friday and Monday. And they're gonna continue to monitor how do things look on Monday. If they're really coming in and it's a bad situation, we've been discussing options for potentially shifting some schedules through the summer months to get a Sunday cleaning. At the moment, it doesn't feel necessary, but it's something we're considering. Develop a system-wide tennis, okay, yes. But we've got 2 tennis court ones. So we had a number of recommendations around developing kind of amenity replacement repair schedules. So tennis court resurfacing, 5-bar replacement, playground equipment.
Irrigation.
Yeah, the irrigation I want to talk about separately, but all of those ones we are meeting with Public Works. We are going to develop a replacement schedule, and our hope is to bring that to you all next year. We've got some of them already identified, and then some of them we need a little bit further work. So we're going to package it all together and bring that to you probably next year. The system-wide irrigation replacement schedule, that one's a little bit more complex. The level of work needed on our irrigation system is pretty substantial. I mean, some of our parks, Albert Park, Peacock Gap Park, the estimates were around $1 million of work needed. So we feel like that needs more analysis and a better understanding of, okay, what really, I think what our consultants did is they were told they needed maintenance, but they applied a per square foot estimate. But they didn't actually go in and look at the system, we weren't at that level of detail, and I think we feel like that's probably what's needed at this stage in order to make a comprehensive plan of how do we address this. Because it's a large system-wide problem, it's gonna take years to address, and we need to be able to understand where are the biggest problem areas, where's the low-hanging fruit, and how do we prioritize what we talk. So that is something we're looking at also for next year, is to try and do that evaluation and that strategic around the irrigation system.
I just, on that slide, those first 2 items, we mentioned that we've seen a decrease in some of the things that have come our way, but I would just encourage the community to continue to let us know, how are things going with conflicts of off-leash dogs, and how are the restrooms, working for everyone? Are they meeting community needs? And one of the best ways that we're able to kind of track our calls for service is our C-Click system. So I just wanted to mention that get that information to us, because that's how we're able to respond. We don't want to fully rely on the community to tell us when there's a problem, but it's really helpful to know that there was an issue, and here's where it's happening, and here's what we can do to maybe solve that issue.
Yeah. Absolutely. The next one is pretty administrative. There were a couple of parks that in the general plan were classified one way, but when in really looking at the size and the amenities needed to be reclassified. We're gonna do that along with some other general plan updates. General plan updates require city council action. And so we'll just package that with another one, at some point when the next one goes. So the next. Yeah, so the second and fourth ones were kind of that amenity replacement schedule I was talking about. And then the third is evaluating a tennis court access program and exploring alternative approaches. This was really around challenges we were having with the key entry system. And that was something we've also brought to you all. We piloted a keyless system. Overall, we got pretty overwhelmingly positive feedback from our tennis court users that they prefer that approach. And so that has continued. So then we have training opportunities for staff to support staff growth and understanding around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The city has implemented a DEIB training for all staff, that all recreation and childcare, all staff, all city staff participate in. It's offered, is that now, to catch any new staff as they come. So that's something. And then I think, you know, we continue to support staff and attending CPRS and other professional development opportunities, many of which have tracks and focuses on DEIB.
Just add to that, too, you know, the city, we have a DEIB committee. And that's a voluntary committee that staff can elect to be part of. And so we have really good representation for library recreation, which I'm not too surprised by because we're really focused on quality of life. Do we really serve community needs? So we're really happy to see so much participation from our department.
And so the next three are all kind of around recreation program evaluation. So one is developing a formal programming philosophy to guide future program delivery. One is developing a program plan, and those two really go hand in hand. And then the third is pursuing additional contracts with other providers for program areas. So the first two are really identifying where are those areas that we have gaps, and the third is implementing on that. And that is something we plan to include in our, I don't necessarily know that we'll need that we bring in consulting work for that. We still need to figure that out, but that is something we plan to include in our work plan for next year. And we'll definitely be engaging the commission for that. Similarly, is the development of a comprehensive fee/cost recovery policy. So that is also something we're actually looking potentially to start this year. The city is implementing a new ERP program, which is basically like our finance, HR, accounting program. And understanding cost recovery as we develop, you know, our financial codes and our chart of accounts could be really helpful. So we're starting to talk to consultants to potentially support us in that work sooner rather than later, but we still need to see what the cost of that is and if we can fit it into this year's budget. But that is something that we're starting to look at soon. And then recreation program services and facilities need to be supported by established marketing efforts. So we are looking at opportunities to do more comprehensive marketing at the library and recreation department level. And how we are looking, we have a current vacancy in our part-time marketing coordinator position. And we're looking at how we can maybe repurpose that position to better support these efforts. So progress we've made on some of the other recommendations, there were kind of all these different buckets, right? And so those were that was the park and the policy area buckets. And then we had kind of these other recommendations. So there's a whole lot of recommendations around ADA access. And those we're kind of tackling as we take on projects at different parks. So Sun Valley Park, Peacock Gap Park, Pickleweed Park, with those larger renovations, we also make sure to improve general accessibility at the site and address some of the high barrier deficiencies. Similarly at Boyd Park, that's a much smaller scale of project, because we're really trying to do that quickly. We are doing some accessibility improvements, including like a ramp into the play area. Benches and picnic tables and kind of the deferred maintenance and end of life need to replace. There's a significant number across the park system that were identified as being near end of life. So we did implement a memorial bench and picnic table, which we had our first bench installations this year. So that was definitely a program we want to promote more and make sure is more well-known in the community. But that's so far, it's working. And then I kind of mentioned, we utilized the evaluation criteria to help us make decisions around emerging priorities, such as the failure of the play equipment at Boyd Park. You know, we were able to really look at that and say, you know, we have a amenity failure. We don't want to just leave it failed. But we also recognize Boyd Park is not one of our more utilized parks, and we don't want to kind of spend a bunch of time and money on a really full-scale project like we're doing at Peacock. So what can we do to make sure that that park is still usable, still provides recreation programming, but doesn't kind of push back our timeline on some of these other projects that came out as a higher priority. And that's that. Sorry, was that enough?
So,
I know, Craig.
I was just saying, you had mentioned earlier too, how many
Right.
near-term priorities did the plan identify? It was 54. And I think when we think about, you know, how do we prioritize these near-term 54 priorities, that's a lot of work. 14 of those are park improvement projects that represent efficiencies or expansions that we've identified. And you know, each one of those projects is in and of itself costly. And so I think we have to be strategic in how we deploy our staff resources, the financial dollars that we receive, which we know are limited. And so we have to be really thoughtful in that approach. We would love to do everything at once and just say, done, we're done with these 54 near-term priorities, but we do have to be really strategic in how we do that. And so just wanted to share that 54 near-term, 29 medium-term, 21 long-term, and 58 other. You know, 10 of which are ongoing, 26 as resources allow. And so, you know, I think we'll always do the best we can to pull in work where we think it's, you know, feasible, if it really makes sense, if resources allow. I think if grant opportunities presented itself, other funding sources came forward that would give us the capacity to do something sooner, I think that would be a great example of how we would use this as a guide, but have the flexibility then to maybe, you know, shift things in a way that makes the most sense based on community.
And I didn't mention this, but the near term, the ideal state is we would be able to accomplish these in 1 to 5 years. And right, we're a year and a half in. I don't think we're going to be able to do them all in 5 years. Just money, you know, resource, everything is costing more money than it was expected to. As you know, I think the original cost was looking at a playground replacement, was just looking at the playground replacement. But as we said, you know, we're doing ADA improvements, we're doing pathway improvements. If we're coming into the site, we not only are legally required to do those, but it's the right thing to do, right? And you know, we're disrupting this park. We may as well try and make some of those more impactful improvements. We're not gonna be able to do everything. It's not gonna be the Cadillac. We don't have the resources. We have too many things that we need to do. But you know, we do want to make sure we're doing the most high value improvements.
so are there any questions from committee members?
I have just a strange question. You mentioned the cistern and that it's called the historic cistern. Does that change how it gets fixed? Is it
No,
like
so I believe,
I know it's old.
and to be honest, we even need to do a little bit of understanding of what this recommendation is. We believe it's, you know, there's that wooden platform that's over a
Yeah.
cistern, so it's that.
Yeah.
I don't, I think it's historic in that it's old. I don't think it has like a. Yeah, it's not like on the National Historic Register. or something.
You mentioned the visits to look at the cistern.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think.
Yeah,
That's just, I
true.
think that was the
Mhm.
Park and Rec consultant saying, that's old, we don't have the capacity to evaluate that for what it might need,
Yeah.
but we would recommend that you take that. So it could find nothing, it could be fine, but they just recommended that, given its age and
Yeah.
location, it should be,
Yeah.
we should take a deeper look at it.
And then just one other question, do we have the Terra Linda, report and master plan, as we saw last month, looks really cool. Is there any, even regardless of which of those versions gets presented to us, is there any idea of where those funds would come for at this, like, is there a hope that there are funds for that?
Yeah, so I think, the Northgate Mall redevelopment, there will be park and lieu fees. I think the amount of fees are still being worked on.
Mhm.
But those fees could be utilized at the Taylor Great Park. Thank you.
Did I understand it right that Peacock Gaps tennis courts could be worked on? And then at like the same time, we'll be coming up with a plan to resurface the other tennis courts, or is that all happening?
Maybe take that one.
Yeah.
So when we've taken a look at our current tennis court inventory, we've identified which courts are, first off, what are the courts that are most heavily used? And we know that Albert Park, the courts here are probably the courts that are in the best shape, and probably the most heavily used by the community. I think following closely behind that, it would be Peacock Gap and Freitas Park. We want to make sure that those continue to be, courts that are safe, that are playable, usable. And we know those are probably those courts that are next up on our list that are going to need that resurfacing work, particularly Peacock Gap. There's a couple areas where there's some settling in the back corners, and we know that the tennis court community has let us know that we need to take a look at that. And so we probably concurrently are going to be looking at, well, how do we make sure that we do have a plan in place so we know when is it time to resurface the court before we get to that point? Before we get to the point where courts are settling and we've got cracks and issues and trip hazards, how do we have just a routine schedule that we can stay on top of, we can track and monitor in our, hopefully an asset management system that we're working to get on. That's going to help us make those decisions and be strategic about planning that long in advance.
Were you asking about whether
Like, is it-
Peacock has to wait for Freitas to be determined?
No,
Or-
like if the decision will be made to resurface Peacock Gap, and then I think later on it was like, almost like coming up with a time.
Oh, yeah, so then
Yeah, I think
you answered that question.
the work plan we know will likely include Peacock Gap and Freitas Park. That again, the
Right.
caveat that Freitas Park is not on city property. We have some conversations there. But we know that that is something that we intend to do or planning to do. And then the policy about how do we create a schedule for resurfacing that we can stick to separate. If for example, if we're able to get to Peacock Gap in the next 2 years and check that off the list, well, we know we don't need to do that again on the schedule
Right.
for several more years down the line, hopefully, right?
And then the irrigation plan, is that going to include like medians as well, or is it just park? Do we know yet?
We
Yes.
don't know yet.
Okay.
We were just talking about it as parks,
Yeah,
but I don't know what Public Works is gonna want to do.
right, like with all these projects, right, there's the narrow scope that's parks and recreation based, and I think for us with our purview, that's what we would really be emphasizing. But there's always opportunities to really be efficient with how we deploy resources, and I think, we would probably coordinate that kind of work with our public works department. And I could see maybe there's a world where they want to bring a consultant in that can advise not only on the parks, but also, mediums and other areas where it's just efficient use of everyone's administrative time. But I think for us, I'm most interested in our parks, right, and making sure that we've got irrigation systems that are smart, that work, that are water, they're not gonna use tons of water. We're not gonna have leaks that pop up all over the place. We're not gonna have a movie in the park where Sprinklers start going off in the middle. of the
Did that happen?
Oh, we're in Parks and Recreation, right?
Yeah.
So, does that,
I think so, yeah. I'm on the Points and Federal Coalition separately. Doing the median maintenance stuff, work on that with DPW. And we get some irrigation dead plant. It's like every year. So I think it would make sense, because usually it's a complaint about dead plants. And then DPW is like, there's issues with our irrigation system on the medians. So I don't know. I mean, it'd be worth looking at. We're going to look at it, but just thinking about that.
yeah, that's what we can share. With people.
And I was wondering where the new library recreation center fits in, or should I not
Oh, yeah.
talk about that at this moment?
Um. That's an emerging priority that wasn't considered. Well, I think so. There are obviously things in the plan that will be impacted by that project. Anything to do with this building is now not super relevant, in terms of facility improvements, obviously, but. I think that's something that in the next few months, the city's really gonna have to think about is how do we resource? That's a huge new scope of work. That was not in our work plan, is exciting, is clearly the community has voted on and told us that's what they want us to do. But how do we resource that and continue with implementing this plan that already takes all of our existing staff capacity? So that's something we're gonna have to, we don't have a plan for it yet. We're still waiting for the certified results to come out, but yeah, that'll definitely be a conversation going into budget season or next fiscal year, looking at our staffing, looking at any additional capacity we might need to take on this really large new scope of project.
And I spoke to this, but that will take time. And that will definitely not happen right away. I think, we're gonna need to really assess and evaluate. And so, I had a couple people ask me, well, you're ready to go, right? Like when's the community outreach and engagement gonna happen? And when can I come and share my opinion about what, that building's gonna look like? We are not there yet, right? We've got a lot of steps that are needing to happen before we get to them.
Well, I just want to thank you because I really am so happy to see this become a live document that is in part of our meetings, and I feel like the summer walking commission meetings that we had were really integral for me to understand the upcoming things that are happening, and I hope that we can incorporate more of that so that we get this chance to really go and see each of the upcoming places that are going to be on the next part of the list. So that's really helpful. So thank you.
Anytime you can get us away from a screen.
Let's go to the parks. Okay, so then I would like to open it to in-person public comment.
Could I ask you a question first? Like, I have a comment to make, but on the issue you were talking about with the playground structure failure, or forget the terminology at Boyd Park. And then you were saying there was a similar issue with the structure at Peacock Gap Park.
It was the same type of structure.
Okay.
We haven't had a failure at Peacock Gap.
Okay, but it was the same. Is that the
It's like
same
a
at
wooden-
Gerstle now?
No,
too?
it's not.
Okay.
They were like wooden structures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to see if that Gerstle was in that world, because I didn't
No,
know. I didn't
no.
know about the Boyd Park thing.
Yeah, no,
Reading for this.
those were wooden structures.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to comment, like, this is so much work and it's so hard to organize and prioritize, and like, we looked at the master plan as a group with the neighborhood association, and lots of people have really encouraging thoughts about it, and we also feel like from a Gerstle Park perspective that we would like to be higher up on the priorities than we are, with a number of the different issues, and I think in terms of the usage, like, when this study was conducted, the park usage, I think you guys ranked it the highest, or it was ranked highest in the study. And I think since that time, it's only gotten greater or bigger or, you know, like more used. I, in full disclosure, live right across the street from the park, but I anecdotally can tell you that usage in terms of like rentals and parties, authorized, unauthorized, really increased last year and also, you know, has continued on this year. And so from a use perspective, we feel like it's a really important park and we definitely have some issues with like health and safety, and, you know, just trying to improve things that are sort of from that like really old kind of falling apart category that we wanted to try to highlight. I mean, I think we'd like to see more attention to the playground, which I know is on the short-term list, and, you know, the pathways are on the short-term list. But definitely like the picnic areas and picnic benches, are a huge like issue and concern. I actually brought a picture and I sent Craig a picture earlier in the week about some creative users like getting around this problem. But like the picnic benches are just like splinter heaven. Like I actually printed these up. I had more, but my printer stopped working, but they're just like super duper old. And so we really wanted people to like start thinking about these. I know that you can, you know, change the priorities like as things emerge, but like this is what the most like used park in San Rafael is offering to renters. There are so many renters like all the time having parties there. I mean, I don't know if they're the authorized paid for ones or not, but last weekend, people brought in this mega tent that took over the whole, like the half the basketball court because they brought in their own tables and chairs because this is what we're offering. And we had a neighbor cleanup event in April or August. And literally we were like, how do we fix the tables? Like, what can we do? Can we pull out the staples and the pins or, you know, like fix things? And DPW was just like, you know, like, I don't know what you can do here. But that's like the most used picnic area in the park. And I think it's a very like heavily used facility in the city. So I think, you know, we just like to see kind of more urgent action toward things, in Gerstle, with the play structures, the paths. I know you have these plans about amenities for the playgrounds, but I didn't know if that included the benches. And yeah, I think this is 10.6 is the table. So anyway, I think we just wanted some more consideration of that and, you know, it's something we'll continue talking about, but we feel like it's an important part that needs more attention kind of in the greater scheme of things. Hopefully sooner than, you know, 5 years from now on the table than sooner than, you know, 2 or 3 years from now with the play structures and pathways and other issues. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, I just want to tell you who I am. I'm a master gardener. My name is Rita Nattestad, and I've been in Gerstle Park for 5 years. I love trees. And when it comes to Gerstle Park and almost everywhere, we can see a lot of dead trees, street trees, park trees. And I'm just concerned about it because we know it's so important to add trees because we have a global warming. And it has so many benefits because it lowers the temperature about 20 degrees. We all know where we want to park. When we go somewhere, it's always under a tree. I think we should prioritize trees much more in the city than we are currently. I also think we should add more native plants. They don't need as much irrigation. Hold on to banks because long root systems. There's so many benefits to it. And then I really have I really have a problem with the turf, the plastic turf. I think it's really bad idea to add that to any kind of park playground because the temperature can go up to 120 degrees on those plastic, and eventually it's gonna end up in a landfill. I think we need to address that. So. Do you have any questions regarding? Well, I'm happy to answer. Well, we do have the Master Gardener. It's a volunteer organization. We are about 300 people as master gardener, and they are very knowledgeable about trees and natives, and so I think why not use us? We would love to be there.
And I'm Brenda Gaden. I'm also in the Bristol Park neighborhood. Friends with, on the board, friends with Katie and Rita. And I've been here for about 18 years. I've lived in San Rafael for about 25 now, on both sides of San Rafael. And there's a couple of things, I guess, that I want to highlight. I do also want to echo Rita's concern about the artificial turf. I don't know if everybody knows this, but Marin Academy had a very large artificial turf. Their whole field was, and it was made up of, I don't know what they make it of, but it was literally shedding little bits of plastic and rubber, which was constantly in the storm drain. So I'm your neighbor who called about that regularly, just because it was going down into the water, into the creeks and into the storm drains. And similarly, not only does it provide heat, but a lot of times they off-gas chemicals that you don't want children or adults, frankly, to be breathing. I have a background in contaminants. I work for the state of California, and so I'm pretty familiar with that if you have questions. But as far as the park itself goes, I think there's a couple of things. So a few of us, there's neighborhood solutions starting. There is a small group of us who are trying to put together Friends of Bristol Park Association, because Bristol Park has been so neglected. It's not only the infrastructure. I mean, the benches, absolutely agree with Katie, they're dangerous. And really all you need to do is unscrew the bolts, pull those boards off and put new boards on, and that's a fairly low cost way of dealing with it, rather than replacing the entire set of benches. You can really just replace the wood and it would be in a far better shape than you are now for a lot less cost. It's really a labor and lumber cost. We've seen Parks Department, and they try really hard. They're understaffed, under resources. I'm sure you guys all know, so it's really not exactly a criticism of them, but we've seen them parking on the redwood, underneath the redwoods during the day. And that's really bad for redwood roots. It's bad for any tree roots to have a maintenance truck parked on it, driving over it. And so that's a concern that the neighbors have seen. As things are taken out, they're not replaced. And so our park is really sad. Like, it was a beautiful Victorian garden. It was a historic garden by the Burstles, right? They had plants from all over the world that were unique, special, rare plants. And one by one, they've all disappeared. Some of them have gotten old, but nothing really gets replaced. Camellia garden, rose garden, special trees. We can plant roses, we can plant camellias, we can make the park somewhat like it was, or some climate appropriate version of what it was. And one of the questions I have for staff and for the commission is, as people are becoming more and more concerned and we want to volunteer and help, how do you think about partners with the neighbors to help fix some of these problems? Because, I mean, we did have one cleanup day, but it was interesting because it seemed Parks and Recs literally came in the day before, whacked off the top of the bushes and cleaned up a lot of the trash. And then there was a cleanup day, and we were coordinating with them, right? So it was like, okay, they're gonna come clean up the park, so we're gonna be there first and clean up the park. But even the trimming, the pruning of the bushes, it was like whack off the top. It's not like an appropriate trimming of how bushes should be taken care of. And so there's a number of things like that where there's, as neighbors, we go there every day, we see it, and we want to help, but we're not sure exactly what the avenue is. We've started talking to local officials. We're here to talk to you because we do want to help and we want to see improvement. And we can't really wait 5 years, because in 5 years, Bristol Park is going to be in really, really, really sad shape. Talk about irrigation. The irrigation does not work. We have volunteers in the neighborhood who are like, we know how to do irrigation. We can come in and help do irrigation and get it going, so that we don't have to wait for an entire, city park program to figure out how to improve the irrigation. And so we are very interested. We're passionate about what's going on in the park. There are numerous neighbors who have different kinds of skills, and we'd like to use them to improve our local park. So it's a, you know, there's some concerns there, but there's also an offer of partnership. And we just need to figure out what the pathways are and how to open the communications and make it so that we can come in and help the park without offending or hurting city staff, right? We don't want to have a problem with city staff. We want to work with city staff. We don't want them to feel threatened. We want to work together. And so we're hopeful that as you as staff members and commissioners, you can help open those pathways.
So thank you for the comments. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna close the public comment section now. And I'm gonna request a motion and a
So
second.
we can respond.
Oh,
Yeah.
would you
because
like
this
to
is
respond?
agenda-
I'm
Because
sorry.
this is an agenda item, so we can respond to
Okay,
issues that were raised.
would you like to respond?
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of those things, I would, I think, first off, I just want to say thank you to all three of you for being here. I know that, you know, you taking time out of your evenings to be here to share your concerns is in and of itself, you know, a testament to your care for the park and the community. So thank you all for being here. You know, I think our goal is to partner with the community. And I really appreciate that offer. I think that that'd be something I'd be interested in exploring. I know we've set up a time to meet in early December to talk a little more about possible opportunities to partner more with the neighborhood. And so I think there's a lot of ways that could manifest. And I'd be really interested to hear more about, you know, what those ideas might look like, ways that we could continue to partner, because we're all in this together. And, you know, I think that's true with all of our neighborhoods. You know, we want to find ways to make sure that we do the best we can with the resources we have. I think, as we mentioned in the presentation, you know, we can't do maybe the big project right now, but in the meantime, in the next 3 to 5 years, I think there are a lot of ways that we can continue to help make sure that we're not only taking care of Crystal Park and maintaining it, but hopefully doing some things to enhance it and make sure that it really does have the amenities the community needs. Picnic tables that are functional, I think are important for our picnic sites, and making sure that, you know, we have safe amenities. Those are things that we want to continue to do. Can't commit to everything, right? These things do take time. It does take planning and it takes coordination, but definitely hear you. And that's something that we want to continue. Love the idea of neighborhood cleanup days and coordinating those. That's something I've seen. And we also love trees. So I think in all of our projects, I know that we've brought to the commission, that's something that I think is really important. It's something we are thinking about. We know that with the climate changes, we want to make sure we're continuing to be resilient. And that's something that we're intentionally planning in projects as much as we possibly can. So appreciate that. And we love our master gardeners as well. We have the Marin Master Gardeners that run our Falkirk gardens there, and really appreciate the support of all the expertise.
I would just kind of piggyback on that, their comment that the partnership that the city has with the Falkirk, at Falkirk with the Master Gardeners is a very successful example of public-private partnerships for management of park, kind of the landscaping of that recreational facility. So that is a model that we love and would be really open to exploring. I think Crystal Park is another park that it's a very similar kind of historical landscape as Falkirk, and I think that's something we would be open to discussing if there's an opportunity there. You know, I think that's exploring public-private partnerships is one of the recommendations from the Park and Rec Master Plan. So it really does align with where the city's trying to go. I think that for one thing that kind of the picnic benches and tables, you know, we established the memorial donation policy to see how it would go, to see how many we would, you know, to see what sort of additional resources we could generate, knowing that we would probably need to come and also at the same time develop an amenity replacement schedule where we're filling in the gaps that program doesn't reach. And I think that that's part of what we will be discussing as well. Because there is a huge need across our park system. This is not the only park where our benches and tables unfortunately look like this. Doesn't make it okay that we need to address it. And we need to address it with that citywide view. I did also hear a couple of comments about the all-weather turf at Pickleweed Park. I know that's a concern that we have heard. We are procuring materials that are as sustainable as possible. I know the black crumb rubber, I know folks have differing opinions. But this was a strong desire, has been a many-year request, decades request from the community for a turf that they can play on all year long. And so this has been a longstanding city priority. We're doing all we can to address the health and environmental concerns. So I know there's a lot of mixed feelings on that, and that's the decision, that's the direction the city has chosen to go based on the information and the meeting priorities we have.
And I think with all those decisions, it's tough, right? I know we shared with the commission as we've gone through that design process that, a big goal of that project is to try to increase our ability to serve the community, and we've had to shut that field down for about 6 months out of the year historically due to issues and concerns with maintenance and unable to really take care of it. We were hopeful that this is going to double community use of that amenity, and it'll be the only all-weather turf field that we have in the city. I think that we'll be judicious in how we choose to develop future projects, knowing that there are these community concerns, but I think that weighing the kind of pros and cons of the decision, where we have an opportunity to really make sure kids and adults have a place to play and use a field was a big factor.
And it's not like you'd be putting that in a Crystal Park or something like that. So yeah, it's a separate.
Do you have a plan with that? Sorry, I don't have it's appropriate for me to speak right now, but I'll just ask the question because told me that it's not the right time. Do you have a plan to keep the plastic bits out of the bay
Yes.
from it? So there's like a stormwater collection or something to
Yeah.
keep it hanging out the bay?
Yes, the short answer is yes. I think offline, if you have any additional questions about the project, I'd be happy to chat with you more.
Yeah.
But yes, it's yes.
Probably.
Yeah.
You get a phone call. Yeah, thank you.
Just as, I also don't love turf fields, or I had similar feelings as you guys, but truly this project brings like parks opportunities like people believe to a community that otherwise doesn't have. A lot of them don't necessarily have backyards or other places to play. And the amount of adult and youth using that field when it's open, which was limited until this project, is enormous. Hundreds of people out there every night, and this is like a really critical sort of healthy decision, I believe, is my opinion, for that neighborhood, but I understand.
Just wanted to say there are different kind of turf
Yes, there are.
that's more sustainable and more living.
Yeah, and for this project, we had designated organic pork and bill for the project instead of the little rubber bits. And so, there's some examples of I think what we've done in design, but try to do the best we can to balance all of those needs. And yeah, it's a federally funded land and water conservation fund grant that's contributing to that project. So we know that federal government has had eyes on it, and they really do care about the environment. There will be an easement on that property to maintain it as a recreation facility in perpetuity, which I'm excited about. I think that is a really important designation, as well as the state has been involved. BCDC really cares about our shoreline, has had close eyes on that project as well. So a lot of eyes on it, a lot of scrutiny, and I think a lot of good thought that went into this.
So I request a motion and a second on this agenda item. I'm going to motion to.
Second.
Becky, can you do the roll call, please?
Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sandoval,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
All right, motion approved. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so
Let's steal this back from.
the next agenda item is the California Park and Recreation Society Community Service Award nomination.
And, I don't have a presentation for this. I'm happy to pull up the staff report if needed, but I think I can talk through this one as well. So annually, the California Park and Recreation Society, they give an opportunity in our District 1 to nominate community service award winners. And each year, we typically take a look at our programs, individuals who've supported our community, and we'd like to honor them. And this is a great way for us to do that. It's one of many ways that we look to do that. This year, we took a look at all of our programs, and we felt that this year would be a really appropriate year to honor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
No, you're welcome.
No, sorry. Thank you guys for your time and all your hard work.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Stay dry.
Yeah, you too. Good night.
So taking a look, we felt that this would be a really great year to honor the Marin Bocce Federation. This is their 30th anniversary in 2024. They have served our community in so many ways. We began our partnership in 1994 with them, with the building of this facility. They took it over as a nonprofit, began to manage it. We've had several different agreements with them, and throughout that time, they have served countless people, really promoted the support of bocce in positive ways. And, our team really felt this would be a great year to really acknowledge that work that they put in on a different level. I don't believe we've ever, in our recent history anyway, we took a look back and they had never been nominated for this award in the last, I think, 10 or 11 years. And so we wanted to bring that idea to you, get any thoughts or feedback that you had on that. Here, if you had any other suggestions or recommendations that you might want to bring our way. And hopefully support that recommendation. If you support that, then we'll be writing up an actual submission that we sent to CPRS, submit that. There is typically a banquet held in February that if they were awarded, that they'd be invited to. We have some staff that would go along and we get a chance to celebrate them on stage and they can already plaque and lots of celebration, a banquet dinner. Which you would also be invited to attend and help celebrate with us.
All right.
I don't, anything else you'd add to that? Yeah.
No. Are there any questions? No. I'm excited about this. I think it's wonderful. I've gone to several events and had the woman that does run the bocce ball tournament, and I was champion in the last tournament.
Oh.
Congratulations.
Just toss that in there.
For anything, so it's a pretty big deal for me. But no, it's such a great group of people in the facility, and yeah, really such a positive part of the community. I really am happy that is here in this area. I think it's really important right now to have something that's drawing the crowd that bocce ball draws, and I really am glad that it's there, and I want to acknowledge them.
Well said, yeah. Same. I think it's a great idea for the 30th anniversary as well.
In motion?
Yes.
Or just, I will move to recommend the Marin Bocce Federation for the CPRS Community Service Award.
I second. Becky, can you call the roll?
All right, Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sandoval,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gutierrez. All right, motion approved. Thank you.
We'll move on to our next agenda item, which is the selection of the commission chair and vice chair.
And similarly, you have all been through, I think, this on an annual basis for a couple of times, so I'd say we probably don't need a full presentation for this one. We can talk through it. In the last year, I know our city clerk, she's kind of helped us, all of our boards and commissions try to align our schedules and really get onto a system where there's an annual review of who is the chair and who's the vice chair. And so we have some recommendations from the city about how does that process work. But what the recommendation is that whoever's the chair would be in that role for a year. And then we give other people an opportunity. Typically, the vice chair would, be, the next kind of person, unless there was a conflict or a reason why they weren't, able to. We'd recommend that the vice chair, is appointed to chair role, and then someone new be appointed to vice chair. We, last month, I believe it was last month in your absence.
In your absence.
You had texted me and said it was okay, but the group did,
I forgot.
we had the public art review board.
Yes.
Selection, I think moving
Good idea.
forward next year. They all said yes. So next year, I think moving forward, we'll probably bundle that all together and just do that all at once in that action. But for this year, the appointments are for the chair and for vice chair. I did not get a chance to touch base with Cicely or Andre and gauge their interest in those rules. Those oversight.
Would typically be Andre based because it's
Okay.
based on
Or.
seniority
I
for the
think that'd
vice
be-
chair.
Right, for
The
vice chair.
vice, yeah, based on
Could we-
seniority and at this point, everyone except for Andre has
Right.
been the chair at some point.
And I think I'm anticipating your question, can you nominate someone in their absence?
I've already
Yes,
done it
you
once.
can.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think if there were some reason why someone that was nominated was just unable or unwilling to serve, I think we would circle back around and probably just have this on the agenda.
Well, I would love to nominate, Mr. Sandoval as the chair.
I second.
Thank you. I've been vice chair. Can I speak on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been vice chair too. This is my second year. And I'm excited to finally step up and be the chair. I think I've been here long enough. I'm excited to do that. So thank you guys so much.
Roll call on that,
Oh, can you nominate the rest?
or do we do?
You can do it at once.
Started doing it as 2 actions, but you can go back and do it as one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, all right. Can we have the roll call, Becky?
Who did you nominate for vice chair?
Oh, Andre.
Yeah, so I would move to nominate, Commissioner Pasternak for vice chair, should he accept the nomination. Okay, second.
Second.
Even if he doesn't accept it.
Even if-
Of course.
The ultimate volunteer.
Can you do the roll call, please, Becky?
Mute it again.
You would think I would learn after all this time. Okay, Chair Cabrales,
Yes.
Vice Chair Sandoval,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
All right, motion's approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Great, and then I think we're moving on to our final agenda item here, which is a review of the 2025 commission meeting schedule.
Yeah, we're gonna pull this up on the screen here. Yes. I hope you can share that. Thank you. This is great having two. So yeah, we wanted to review the recommended meeting dates and times for 2025. Probably we're talking about 2025. So Park and Rec Commission typically meets the third Thursday of each month. And what you see on the screen here would reflect the third Thursday of each month. The last couple of years, we have not met in August. We've been dark in the months of August and September. I think that's in large part just due to travel, holiday schedules. December, I think really makes sense. It's a really hard month to plan. And the third Thursday is gonna really line up. So I wouldn't expect any changes there. We talked about whether, we should flip flop maybe July and August. That's the month that goes dark. I think we wanted to ask you as a group kind of what your preferences are, looking at 2025, really look at these dates. Does this work? Did you want to make any changes to the schedule? I think it kind of goes hand in hand. What's the work plan and what are the different tasks that we need to, what are the agenda items we need to bring to you for approval? We haven't quite pegged that down yet. And I think what we're planning to do is come to you in January with more of a work plan. I think if there were, vacations or travel dates in August or July, and you wanted to recommend, maybe we flip flop those, or really any of those other months, we could probably accommodate it. Yeah, we wanted to open it up for discussion and see if you
None of these don't align with the school holidays.
I would love to have the option to talk about July and August a little bit closer to July and August, because I don't know anything about what my schedule's gonna be.
I have travel in August, like August 23rd, but I think it's,
It would be the 21st,
I think we're fine.
first day of school.
August would be the 21st, you're right?
July.
Yeah, so. Probably okay.
That's probably the first week of school,
20th is the
isn't
first
it?
day, yeah.
Yeah. Just a ton of.
There you go. Not even TK.
And my son, I don't know what school he's gonna go to.
So there we
No
go.
idea. It's quarter or semester or anything, so.
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Yeah, and I think like you mentioned, we could always revisit, I think, as we get closer to some of these meeting dates. We could always change the dates, flip flop. It's always possible.
And I'd love to just, I know you heard before, but the meetings at the park. So great. Like,
Yeah.
Really great.
Yeah, and I think we're, I probably June or July 2025, we'd be looking at doing something very similar. I think that it's really valuable to go and actually see the parks. I
And
really
just,
like that
and
as
the
well.
upcoming issue, like how you were saying, like, oh, you're the upcoming issues that we're starting to think about. Just knowing what the cistern that you're talking about is and where, like that.
Well,
was
by then there will
super
be new
Yes,
equipment in
right?
there, so, see both.
Yeah, but just, seeing what the upcoming issues that have bubbled up or, knowing the tennis courts, how they're not on the right, they're not on it. Yeah, I wouldn't be able to visualize that without really have been there. So thank you. Super helpful.
Okay, I think
Do we approve? Do I call for motion to approve? The commission meeting schedule for 2025.
I'll move to approve the 2025 commission meetings schedule.
Second.
Okay, Becky, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Becky.
you're 3 for 3 now.
Now it's just embarrassing.
I was like, no, she's not really gonna do it again, is she?
It was intentional, right? It was
Yeah,
not
that's
really.
good.
On your toes. Okay. Chair Cabrales. Vice Chair Sandoval
Yes.
and Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion approved.
So I think now we're on to the staff liaison report.
Right. I think a couple of the things I would have updated on were included in the, the update for the Park and Rec master plan. I was just reiterate though, Pickweed Park, we're still happy with our construction. Really excited about that project. Mentioned Peacock Gap in Boyd Park. The TLCC, the Park and Community Center Enhancement Plan. If you want to check out the webpage, we did update the website with new information, so you can see a summary of the rounds to outreach. And as Catherine mentioned, we're going to come back to you in January with a more thorough update. Recently celebrated Arbor Day, speaking of trees, so our Parks and Rec, our Parks and Waterfront. I'm gonna get it right the third time myself. Department of Public Works, the DPW, they hosted an Arbor Day celebration in front of Falkirk Cultural Center. So there are several new giant sequoia trees that were planted. Mayor Kate got up and there's, you may have noticed a couple of trees that had to be removed, I believe, last year. They had died, and so there's some big stumps there. She got into a stump speech, so it was pretty. Borough Community Center in early November had their Day of the Dead celebration. It was beautiful, really well attended. So kudos to Steve Mason and his team there and all the community partners who helped make that celebration so special. I know our Steve recently was he was celebrated in the California Park and Recreation Society, the monthly newsletter that's put out. Darcy Chalou and Debbie Yunkin submitted him as a hero, and they have a little write-up on him in that magazine. It was really cool to see that. So a big shout out to Steve for all the work he does. He really is a hero for the community and it's done great work. multicultural older adults had their Thanksgiving potluck. Which was really a fun celebration down there at Borough Community Center. And the other kind of borough related event is the mural. And if you have had a chance to go down to Pickle Week Park and go take a look at the front of the community center, the mural is complete. It's been a 2-year-long kind of project, and it's beautiful. So if you have a chance to take a look, I encourage it. I'll make sure that you get the invitation. We had to postpone the celebration, which was scheduled for tomorrow, but due to the rain, we felt it probably wasn't the best time. We're trying to pick a new date. We're really close, I think, to finalizing a new date. It's hard getting everyone together, but I'll make sure that you're aware of that. It's looking like it'll be probably mid-December. Here at the San Rafael Community Center, we had the Seeds of Hope luncheon was earlier this week, and that really is a cool collaboration. It's a partnership between Marine Health and Human Services in the city, and it's an event that's really designed to bring together service providers, local businesses, organizations that offer support services, food and space for those experiencing homelessness in San Rafael. So our library team had a booth there this year. They got to meet with quite a few people, have an opportunity to give away tote bags and dry bags. Tomorrow's the last day for Carolina Pool for 2024.
Treat walk,
What's that?
treat walk.
Treat walk. I don't know if I mentioned treat walk or
I think
not.
it was coming up at the last.
It might have been,
But now
yeah.
it happened and it was
Thank you for
very
the reminder.
successful.
It was very successful, and shout out to Darcy who helped support that and make that happen. Yeah, I think we had more than 150 little ones that came through. They did a tour out through the gardens, and there were several other of our city departments there. PD was there, fire, other community partners that provide programs for us all came together, dressed up in costume.
Pumpkin decorating, and then the auditorium was filled with all the jumping jacks stuff, so it was a lot of fun.
I think that's gonna be, I think that will be an event that might become an annual thing that grows, so I'll look for that for next year. And yeah, shout out to our aquatics team. Carolina Pool has, we adopted the pilot program fees that we had been using. We adopted those permanently, and so we do have new fall winter fees, and we had a really successful season this fall. I think the weather cooperated and held out until this last week here. But tomorrow will be the last day of the pool season for 2024. So thanks to everyone who came out and swam with us. Falkirk, we're in our, we have an exhibit that is up through December 13th. It's 3 different groups. The Public Art Review Board recently, last year, they started reviewing exhibit proposals, and they took the approach of giving shared space for some of the exhibit blocks. And so we have the second Friday salon in one room, Marie Cragen in another, and Dana Christensen in another. So I encourage you to check it out. It's actually, it's a beautiful set of exhibits. There's some really great artwork up there this year. And next year, the 2025 exhibit schedule is looking really good too. Holiday of Lights in Winter Wonderland, November 30th, Shop Small Saturday. The San Rafael Lighted Boat Parade is December 7th. The annual San Rafael, the BID Holiday Party Mixer is December 9th. Second Friday Art Walk, the last Friday of our Falkirk Day, December 12th. And then the third annual Menorah Lighting in Gulfcroft is December 29th. So lots of holiday events coming up.
Boarding commission reception,
Or
with all that, Eric,
which date is that? I couldn't.
it's on our calendar.
That's
Just keep me the date.
It's actually not on my calendar. That's why I was asking.
It is.
Yeah,
I
maybe I
looked.
just missed it. Okay.
I look.
Brenda?
You know what, maybe they sent it to me.
It's on the 3rd.
The third. Okay.
So.
Thank you.
So
I
what was
have
that?
it.
The-
All right.
You're on it.
It's not on the Falkirk calendar. That was what I was looking at today. So
Oh.
I know it's on it, but.
Hey,
Bigger problem.
Citywide, yeah, as you're all aware, we're going through our storm, so a good reminder to get prepared for the cold weather. There are sandbag locations listed on the website. And then, we've got library projects going on as well. The pop-up has been very successful on 4th Street. I think we've received really good feedback on that. And we're still under construction at the downtown library. I know you had a chance to go check it out.
Yeah, it doesn't look like much from the outside, but there's a whole lot going on inside. So they've demoed most of the walls that are gonna be demoed. It looks really cool. It's, yeah. Kind of, I was actually shocked at how small it looks inside.
Mhm.
I thought it would look bigger with like nothing in it, but then you kind of really see like, oh, there's. A wall is not very far away, so, yeah, but I'm excited, it's gonna be a nice little refresh for the library while we're still there. But I mean, obviously the other big news, Measure P has passed, I think,
As
still.
it was like so close when you were saying something about the certification and I was like.
Oh,
yeah,
no,
this is-
we're almost to 1,000 vote differential.
Oh,
The
okay.
night of, the first vote counts to come out, we're at about 140,
That's what I
but
saw.
everyone
Yeah.
that came in, it just kept. So yeah, now we're at about 1,000 votes.
Okay,
Definitely, so, no, it was just, because it started so close, we've kind of been like, well, we'll just wait and see, but yeah, the certification has to be done by December 3rd, and so that's kind of like the real. But there's enough of a difference.
and the construction that's happening there now would be beneficial, even moving forward.
Yeah,
with,
It's a lot, it's HVAC, roofing, plumbing, electrical. There's some kind of a nice refresh going on in the Carnegie upstairs room. So I think it will be really beneficial no matter what feature use that building.
Great.
And that'll be, yeah, I feel like in the next year, there'll be a lot kind of coming that year plus. It's gonna be a long process.
It's exciting.
Yeah,
Exciting
that sounds good.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then, the next agenda item is commissioner reports. Commissioner reports. Okay. Right, then I think it's adjournment. I will call the meeting adjourned at 7:27. Thank you.
I feel like these clocks just align.
They really do.
They don't usually, they're usually a couple minutes apart. I don't know.
That's our hero, Steve Mason. You got through there today. I think I'm.
Wasn't that,